I'll never forget the day I walked out of my family's mansion, my father's voice chasing me down the marble corridors. "You're worthless, you'll never make it on your own." Rain lashed against the stone steps as I stepped into the storm, tears mixing with the downpour. In one hand, a worn suitcase held the sum of what I owned. In the other, the remnants of a life I was leaving behind. My name is Olivia Sterling. That was 10 years ago. I was 22, freshly graduated from business school, and I had just committed the ultimate betrayal in my father's eyes. I refused to take the role he'd arranged for me at Sterling Industries. "You're throwing away your legacy," my mother had whispered, her fingers trembling around a crystal glass of Chardonnay. "Why must you always fight us?" But I had looked deeper into Sterling Industries and saw what they refused to, a crumbling empire built on outdated models and ego. My father, James Sterling, was stuck in the 1980s, ignoring every sign of a shifting market and dismissing innovation as a passing trend. I spent months building a proposal for a digital overhaul, market research, growth forecasts, implementation plans. I believed I could help him see the future. He laughed in my face, a cruel, booming laugh that echoed off the boardroom walls. The executives joined in, not out of amusement, but fear. "This is why women shouldn't run companies," he said, dabbing at tears of mockery. "Too emotional. Stick to HR, sweetheart, leave the real decisions to men." My brother Marcus smirked beside him, his birthright secure, his loyalty unquestioned. He had never earned his position, only inherited it. That night, I made my decision. I wouldn't be part of a sinking ship captained by arrogance. I had my own ideas, my own ambition. When I told them I was leaving to build something of my own, the house exploded. "Ungrateful little brat," my father roared, his face flushed with fury. "I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me? You're nothing without the Sterling name." My mother didn't speak. Her silence was louder than his rage. She looked at me like I'd died. "Get out," he ordered. "Don't come back until you're ready to apologize, and accept your place." I walked away with $2,300 in my bank account, money I'd stashed from part-time jobs they didn't know about. My trust funds were locked, my credit cards canceled before I reached my car. But the true inheritance they gave me wasn't financial, it was knowledge. Years of listening at the dinner table, absorbing strategy and understanding markets. I had learned more from their mistakes than their successes. I rented a shoebox apartment in a rough neighborhood and started consulting for scrappy tech startups. By day, I helped them evolve. By night, I built my dream. I called it Phoenix Industries, a symbol of rebirth. I would rise from the ashes of my family's empire and create something bold, something better. My focus? Helping traditional companies adapt to the digital age. I understood the old world, but I was fluent in the future. The early years were brutal, 18-hour days, instant noodles. My living room doubled as an office, but momentum built, slowly and steadily. One client turned into 5, one success unlocked the next. By year 3, Phoenix had 20 employees and a proper office. By year 5, we were overhauling the systems of Fortune 500 giants. I stayed out of the spotlight, operating through layers of anonymity. No one knew the woman behind the curtain. I caught glimpses of my family in the business headlines. Sterling Industries, once untouchable, was in freefall, choking on its own refusal to change. My brother, now CEO, was being ridiculed for steering the company straight into irrelevance. But I didn't gloat, I didn't reach out, I just kept building. Whenever exhaustion crept in, I replayed my father's voice. "You'll never succeed." Those words became my fire. While Sterling Industries clung to the past, Phoenix Industries became the architect of the future. A decade passed, and I never looked back. I built Phoenix Industries from the ground up, acquisition by acquisition, step by step. What started as a modest consulting venture quickly blossomed into a global powerhouse in digital transformation, with offices in 12 countries and more than 10,000 employees. Phoenix Industries was now a force to be reckoned with. By year 8, my personal net worth had surpassed my father's, but not a soul knew it. I lived comfortably, yet modestly, still driving the same car I bought back in year 5. Then came the day I had both dreaded and anticipated for years. My assistant burst into my office, eyes wide with excitement. "Miss Sterling, Sterling Industries just announced they're looking for emergency investment. They're on the brink of bankruptcy." I took the report from her hand, my fingers steady despite the surge of emotions inside. Sterling Industries, once valued at $89 million, was now worth less than half that. Their stock had plummeted 70% in just the last quarter. Their biggest issue? My assistant continued. Failure to modernize. They're losing contracts to more technologically advanced competitors. I leaned back in my chair, gazing out over the city skyline from my penthouse office. 10 years of preparation had led to this moment. I opened my laptop and typed a brief email to my board. Initiative Homecoming is a go. Prepare the takeover documents. The next day, Sterling Industries received an offer they couldn't afford to refuse, a lifeline from Phoenix Industries. The terms were simple: full operational control in exchange for saving the company from its impending collapse. I knew my father would fight it. His pride was too large to allow him to go down quietly, but the truth was, he had no choice. His investors were in revolt, the board was on the verge of removing him, and his once mighty company was teetering on the edge. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the CEO of Phoenix Industries, the mysterious savior they were about to meet, was the same worthless child they had cast aside a decade ago. Sometimes, success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. The Sterling Industries boardroom hadn't changed one bit in 10 years, the same mahogany table, the same leather chairs, even the same pretentious oil paintings of past CEOs, my father's included, though his portrait now looked older, just like him. I stood in the adjacent room, watching through the one-way glass as the Sterling board gathered for their emergency meeting. My father sat at the head of the table, his once dark hair now completely gray, his posture a shadow of its former pride. Marcus slouched beside him, absorbed in his phone, as uninterested in business as he had been all those years ago. The Phoenix Industries CEO is here, my assistant announced. Shall I send her in? The word her rippled through the room like a sudden gust of wind. I saw my father's jaw tighten. He still couldn't stomach the thought of women in leadership roles. Her, Marcus scoffed, barely looking up from his phone. Dad, we're seriously going to let some woman take control of our company? Before my father could respond, I swung open the door and stepped inside. The room fell dead silent. My mother, seated in the observer section, dropped her designer purse. Marcus's phone slipped from his hands and crashed onto the table. And my father, he looked as if he'd seen a ghost. Olivia, he whispered, his face draining of all color. I stood tall in a sharp black suit, heels clicking sharply against the marble floor as I walked to the podium. 10 years of hard-won confidence radiated from each step. Good morning, everyone. I'm Olivia Sterling, CEO of Phoenix Industries. Marcus shot out of his chair with a screech of wood on tile. This is a joke, right, little Olivia, the failure? I smiled, calmly pulling a folder from my briefcase. Actually, Marcus, I'm here to save Sterling Industries, your failure, to be precise. Shall we take a look at the numbers? I clicked the remote, and the screen behind me flickered to life, displaying charts and graphs. Sterling Industries has lost 70% of its market value under your leadership. Your technology is outdated, your management structure is archaic, and your market share is shrinking by the day. Now see here, my father began to protest, but I cut him off before he could continue. No, Dad, you've had enough of the talking. For 10 years, you've run this company as though it's still the 1980s. Remember when I tried to warn you about digital transformation? Remember the presentation I gave you, one you laughed off? I clicked to the next slide, a replica of the very presentation I had shown him a decade ago, followed by new charts that confirmed my predictions had come true. Everything I warned you about came to pass, every single thing, and now, you need my help to save the company you said I'd never be good enough to run. My father's face contorted, turning a shade of purple I hadn't thought possible. This is outrageous. I won't let you. You don't have a choice, I said calmly, sliding copies of the takeover agreement across the table. Phoenix Industries will inject $150 million into Sterling Industries, pulling you back from the brink. We'll modernize your infrastructure, overhaul your technology, and bring this company into the 21st century, but I will have full operational control. Marcus laughed, a brittle sound without conviction. The board will never approve this. The board already has, said Harold Matthews, chairman of the board, speaking for the first time. We voted this morning, it was unanimous. My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. Olivia, sweetheart, you can't do this to your own family. Family? I turned to her, voice level, words measured. The same family that cut me off, that told me I'd never succeed, that laughed when I dared to think differently. I shook my head slowly. I'm not doing this to my family, Mom. I'm saving the company my grandfather built, for my family. I circled the table and stopped beside my father, once an imposing figure. Now, he seemed diminished, smaller. You know what the saddest part is, Dad? I said softly. If you had listened to me 10 years ago, none of this would have been necessary. Your pride, your arrogance, your refusal to change, that's what brought us here. He wouldn't look at me, his hands trembled as he reached for the agreement. Sign it, I said, voice quiet but firm. Or I'll wait 2 weeks and buy Sterling Industries at a bankruptcy auction, for half this offer. Silence hung in the room like fog. Then, one by one, the documents were signed. With each signature, the balance of power shifted irreversibly. Marcus stormed out before the ink was dry, slamming the door. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. My father, the great James Sterling, sat slumped in his chair, the weight of defeat finally settling on his shoulders. As the board members filed out, I remained at the head of the table. My father finally looked up, his voice gravelly. How did you do it? I met his gaze. Exactly the way you taught me. I saw an opportunity, and I took it. The difference is, I looked ahead, you looked behind. He nodded slowly, the arrogance that once defined him now gone. And what happens to us now? You retire, I said, spend time with Mom, travel. Marcus will need to find a real job. I hear Walmart is hiring. A small smile tugged at my lips. Sterling Industries will survive. It just won't be run by Sterlings anymore. As I turned to leave, my mother's voice stopped me. Olivia, wait, can we, at least have dinner sometime, try to be a family again? I paused at the door. My mind flashed to years of cold family dinners, dismissive glances, backhanded compliments, holidays where I was invisible. Maybe someday, Mom, but right now, I have a company to run, a beat. Actually, 2 companies. That evening, I sat in my office as the sun dipped below the skyline. My assistant brought in an advance copy of the next day's Wall Street Journal. Phoenix rises, mystery CEO revealed in Sterling Industries takeover. I poured a glass of champagne, the same brand my father once used to toast Marcus's hollow achievements. The irony was delicious. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. I was wrong. I'm sorry. 10 years too late, but I appreciated the gesture. I replied simply. I know. I've learned that success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't in watching others fall, it's rising so high, they have no choice but to see what they threw away. I raised my glass to the skyline and toasted the scared young woman who had once walked away from marble halls with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. She had no idea that her father's cruelest words, "You'll never succeed," would one day be the foundation of an empire. Sometimes, the people who try to break you, make you unbreakable instead.